G'day, welcome to Say It With Guitars. I'm your host, Pete Cornelius. Each episode I'll be digging deep and getting to hang with some of Australia's finest guitar pickers, songwriters, producers, collectors and makers. I look forward to bringing you these fun conversations and I hope you enjoy Say It With Guitars. Hey legends, thanks for joining us for probably the last episode of the series. Yep, you heard it, I'm going to be taking a break. I've had some great conversations with some awesome people, and yeah, I think it's about time for this season to wind up. So yeah, I'm calling it. It sure has been a great learning curve into, jumping head first into making podcasts, and I sure look forward to setting up a new season for next year with some more outstanding guests. So yeah, look forward to bringing you guys some more juicy content. I sure hope everyone had a great Christmas break. Ours was a little bit interesting. The house was in lockdown with COVID. So yeah, it wasn't the Christmas we had planned, but you got to roll with the dice, and we're all good now and look forward to hanging out with some friends for New Year's. Also, I've got a big tour coming up in January, folks, so please keep an eye out on the gig guide on my website, and yeah, hope to see you all out and about. Happy New Year. Before we crack into today's show, I'd like to shout out to our sponsor, Mr. Billy Tarrant from Tarrant Guitars. Billy's an amazing luthier and he makes some real sweet instruments. I'm lucky enough for him to have built me a 00 size acoustic guitar, which I've dragged all around the country and it's sounding better than ever. So yeah, check out tarrantguitars.net.au, Tassie's one-stop custom workshop for custom-made guitars, all guitar repairs and services. Let's get into the show. I'd like to welcome to Say It With Guitars, the podcast, Soren and Dave from the band Sweet Talk. Hey fellas, how you going?
Very well, mate. Thanks for having us, man.
Really good.
Pleasure to be here.
Good to see you.
Thanks very much for joining us. Who wants to give us a little intro as to how the two guitars work in Sweet Talk? Who's putting their hand up?
That's a great question, man, to start this all off.
We could probably talk about that for the whole hour.
Coming in heavy.
Where do we begin? I mean, Soz and I have played guitars together for like 20 years. We met in high school. We started jamming together then. We've been in other bands before, but we've always jammed and gotten together. And like one of the big things we always talk about is like the Keith Richards, Ronnie Wood thing, guitar weaving. Yeah. And that's like an approach to not dedicating one person to rhythm and one person to lead, and to like finding the sweet spot between both of those things and having a conversation between the guitars. So that's kind of I think the foundation of our kind of a philosophy on how we want to approach it is like there's plenty of rhythmic stuff going on, there's plenty of lead breaks, there's plenty of harmonized stuff going on, but really it's like one of our engineers said this to me recently. He goes, pan the guitars left and right and they're just talking to each other the whole time. And that's that weaving thing, it's like you're not necessarily sure who's playing what or what role that's playing, but it's just about finding those sweet spots between the notes or playing in a different register or whatever to find that. Like, because we write the songs, we come at it from guitar players' perspectives. So we write the riffs and that comes down to a lot of the times writing those riffs first before we've written anything else. So that's the foundation of like the whole sound, really. Yeah, weaving.
Well put, mate. That was very well described.
Yeah. And that interaction between you two is very prevalent. Like I know that from what I was listening to in the live arena and some of the pre-recorded stuff on the YouTube, it's definitely some back and forth and sort of leaving space for each other. And like the tones are similar in a way. Like I know they're both using single coil guitars a lot. Mm-hmm. So you're sort of not going for massive diversity in your approach either. You're sort of coming at it from the same angle and the same history. I don't know. I'm probably presuming the same sort of history. What's your background individually, you guys, as guitar players? Soren, maybe you want to chip in?
Yeah, I think for me, I was definitely, I guess it would have started really with George Harrison and the Beatles and that in general. Right. But that quickly quickly went to blues for me, and I've been pretty rooted in the blues ever since. But that's what I think my bread and butter is. Early Chicago sort of stuff, love it. Even earlier, obviously. But I found a sort of I just loved Chicago blues, and then from there it just went to the Southern rock, the Dwayne Allman. He's like a god to me. So yeah.
Who were some of the Chicago guys that you would sort of highly regard as your influences, or probably not even
back
guitar
in the day,
players, just
Buddy
like
Guy,
singers? Buddy, yep.
Buddy, and actually you might be able to tell me, Pete, where's T-Bone Walker from? He's actually probably my earliest memory of locking on to a proper, like sort
Texas.
of Texas, right? So that probably explains a lot. I was a big T-Bone Walker fan back in the day. Nothing to do with my last name,
Absolutely.
of course, but huge fan of his. And then I honestly became obsessed with Stevie Ray Vaughan for a while. Went through a huge Stevie phase.
Yep.
But then sort of sliding into more country stuff later on, I guess. So yeah.
Yep. And do you think that came from songwriting, like the country vein, like writing songs yourself, or is that sort of just a progression, you think?
I think it was a progression, like just wanting to hear more of the major stuff and then the major minor combination, which I think is why I landed south, like the southern sort of sound. I find that crossover there is the best to me. I love playing with major minor stuff. It's simple stuff, but it's so effective and so powerful, I think.
Yeah. And it really diverts you from that typical blues sound as well. Like, the minor pentatonic that happens in a lot of that Chicago stuff, whether it be a guitar or a piano or a horn line or a harmonica, it's pretty much that kind of diatonic, pentatonic sort of sound. And then you start listening to Southern Soul and, especially the Allman Brothers, like the Dickie Betts and, those sort of guys interweaving that major melodic stuff. It's like, ooh, that's fresh.
Yeah, and then you sort of just weave a bit of jazz in there and you're in totally different territory.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Dave? What's your sort of take on the guitar?
I definitely didn't come from that spot. I mean, back in the day, the first guy was Kurt Cobain for sure. Like most 14-year-olds in 1994, I think I learnt Unplugged beginning to end and then dove deep. But when I came to the blues, which was it was around that time, probably introduced to the blues through Where Did You Sleep Last Night? Off of Unplugged, Huddy Ledbetter, Leadbelly.
In the Pines,
and then
right?
I kind of like, my dad had a 2 CD set of Robert Johnson, and that was really the first blues I went really deep into and just trying to figure out the chord shapes and like some of the patterns and some of the slide stuff even, because I play a lot of slide in Sweet Talk. I would say almost majority of what I do is slide, even though I do other stuff as well. That was kind of like early days. I was just like, and actually, funnily, Dwayne comes into this as well, because long before I fully tapped into Southern rock, one of the first things I learned to play on slide was Statesboro Blues off of the live record.
First song, baby.
Yeah, and that's just like one shape and an open tuning, and you just like, you kind of move around the one position. But that was like, those were really early slide lessons for me. Then it progressed to discovering Ry Cooder. My uncle is Dom Turner from the Backsliders, and so
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, he's a slide guy, and obviously, I mean, he's kind of notorious for being a great slide player, and he kind of introduced me to a lot of slide stuff as well, some of the concepts, some of how to get to the 5 chord with the different tuning and trying to find the finger shapes and stuff. But he got me some Ry Cooder stuff and Tom Waits stuff actually in the same year, and that kind of like took me off into, I discovered Mark Ribot through the Tom Waits stuff, and then Ry Cooder. And Ry Cooder is really like, that was like, he's still my guy. Like I find him the most compelling, interesting musician and player and producer, probably, I reckon. I just think that he's an endless well, and I love everything he does. And if you go back, especially his first few records, but he's just, I mean, what he does with open tunings, with the way that he plays across tunings, and he's just phrasing and stuff. I just absolutely adore it. And then from there, it was like the new guys like Blake Mills. I absolutely love him. And I know that long after that, discovering Little Feat and Lowell's playing, I try to get a lot of that into the slide. You know, I try to get a lot of like Lowell would hit a note bang on and then not use vibrato. And he'd just kind of use it almost like an organ player, like slide up to a note and then just hit it. So I like that, but then I also like the way that Rye plays really loosely around a note. So I try to kind of incorporate a little bit of that as well, and then Derek Trucks as well. Those are kind of like my. I would say those are the guys like I lean on a lot in Sweet Talk. You know,
Great.
I have other like if I'm talking about regular because I'm a telly player for picking stuff. It's like I'm a mad Jim Campolongo fan. I love that guy. I actually get lessons from him.
He's so bent. It's great. Oh, really?
Behind me is a whiteboard, and that's where I write so I don't forget when the Campolongo lessons are.
Wow.
12th of Jan's the next one. So I see him once a month. And and I got, guys like Red Volkart. He's amazing. He's amazing. He's blown my
How did you get onto that? Did you just send him a DM through one of the socials and
I just found it on his website actually. He said he was taking students, and I was like, fuck man, like, it's in the middle of COVID. I had nothing else to do. Because I was explaining to you before, like we were doing a lot of music before. We were playing in Sweet Talk, and I was making records with people, and then it's like, damn, it's just me and my guitar in a room, And so tapped into him, and it was nerve wracking at first, but he's so generous, and it's a really great relationship. I love it, and it's teaching. I mean, I quite frequently have mini panic attacks during the lessons because I'm like, whoa, slow down, buddy. But luckily he records it on Zoom. And so I can go and rewind and watch stuff over and over again. So, guys like that. I love Brad Paisley, man.
Record those.
Yeah, you do. So that's it. It's kind of like for me. It's like what Soren was saying about the minor and major blues thing, the pentatonics, and that's in all that stuff. It comes from a different angle of it, but it's there.
Yep.
And that's I love that sound too. I think that's the most expressive way you can do something. It's like no notes are out of bounds. If you know how to hit them.
Absolutely. And even if it is a bit sort of funky and a bit spicy, it's sort of, if you can sort of hit it twice perhaps and then like go, I kind of meant to do that.
Love
and
that.
Then, yeah.
Totally. That's what
I love about, sorry man, you go.
Man.
Well, I was just going to say, sometimes that's what I love about, this latency is great.
Yeah.
I do love about alternative tunings, like ones that you're not quite familiar with, like maybe one that's a bit fresh and a bit sort of new under the fingers, and you go to do a pattern or a shape, if you pretty much, you can hear where it's going to go, but on a fresh tuning, it's like, oh, that didn't end up how I wanted it to, but sometimes that's how you find the magic sort of notes that you don't really expect.
Absolutely.
I don't know, that's what happens to me anyway.
Yeah, like every guitar has a song in it, right? Like when you first get a guitar and there's a song there for sure, you'll write something on it. And maybe it gives you a bit more than that and you might get 6 or 7. And maybe it's a lifetime thing or maybe it kind of comes to its end. It's the same, I feel like, when you change any parameter, like you get a new piece of gear or whatever. But that's true of the tuning thing, right? Because what you thought you were doing through muscle memory is not what ends up coming out. And then you find something that you ordinarily, your taste wouldn't take you there. But that's the exciting stuff. For sure.
Absolutely. Have you got a go-to? Like, are you sort of like an open D sort of vibe?
Open E.
Sort of open G?
Open E. Open E is the number one what that I use on. I've got a CUDA-casted Telecaster that I play. I only play tellies, and but my main slide guitar is a CUDA-caster, so it's got the lapse through steel bridge pickup.
Great.
Which is an absolute nightmare to get right.
Is it the Lolo one?
Pardon? No, it's not. It's a Mojo, actually. It's a UK guy built them. They're very similar, apparently, but it's got slightly rounded edges, so it doesn't cut up your palm quite as much. But it was out of phase.
I've heard they're a nightmare to set up because of the the bridge height has to be perfect to fit through the slot. And
that's number one problem. The other problem is every single pole piece is it's adjustable with a screwdriver, tiny screwdriver, and they are so sensitive that just by using it and putting it on planes and stuff, they can readjust themselves, and all of a sudden your G will be 3 or 4 dB louder than the rest of your strings, and so you've got to do that. There's other magnets that if you put them in the wrong way, that'll be out of phase with the neck pickup. It's really interesting, but it's really harmonically complex and kind of slightly microphonic. So it's really interesting, but I got to be really careful about that when I play too loud. Yeah, so that's an open E with flat wound, and that's the number one. And then I play in open G a lot as well. I haven't yet tapped open G for Sweet Talk. That's like I've almost intentionally been holding that back because I know that when I've run out of E songs, it's like album number 2 comes around, we need songs. It's like open G, baby. Let's see what we got.
Horns and G tuning.
Yeah.
How about you, Soren? Do you get into the slide open tuning stuff, or are you strictly like a regular tuning guy? What's your approach to the guitar in the band?
It's pretty traditional, to be honest. Yeah, I'm pretty simple all around in my approach with generally life and particularly guitar, but yeah, standard tuning the whole way through. Can't even boast a drop D.
Hey, that's album number 3.
Hey, but no, I just I'm very I guess traditional, but obviously amazing. But yeah, I just approach it that way, my friend.
Nice. Keeps it simple,
Yeah, well, someone's got to keep it simple.
It's tricky having a few guitars. Like I haven't got any guitars that I dedicate to slide. I kind of try and I just keep my options open, I suppose. That also makes it hard for string action and that sort of stuff and string gauge.
Big time.
Yeah.
So because I play slide in regular tuning as well in Sweet Talk. So like the e-guitar comes out probably 4 out of 10 songs, and then the rest of it's on regular tuning, and I play slide on that 90% of the time too. That's tricky because there's a sweet spot that I've discovered, and I'm happy with it. Like I think I tend to have my action a bit higher than regular people anyway, but I've been forced to really lighten the touch on the slide. It's the only way to do it.
Yep.
So I've actually gotten thinner slides now too. So I've been through the whole gamut of like all sorts of like different slides. I've got a cupboard full of them. The Dunlop thin-walled slides, straight up. It's what Derek uses, what Blake uses. There's a reason. They're really agile, but it allows you to not bash the string down to the fretboard. So they're good. They're working. But it is tricky for sure when you're trying to play both styles on that one guitar. It's a whole different game. You got to be so gentle.
It is. Do you go down the LOL sort of approach and use a compressor or like 2 compressors?
I've tried.
That sort of thing as well?
I've tried. I can't do it, man. I actually just pulled a compressor off my board that I bought. I had this. It's the Origin Cali 76.
Oh yeah, the Cali
stack,
76. Yeah.
Yeah, and so two that go into one another, but it's I don't know. There's something about it that I just can't ever really jive with a compressor. I've tried so many times, and I think it's mainly probably because I wind the amps up pretty loud anyway, and I got to get them on that edge of like sag compression kind of thing, bite, so that I like that feel of when you're driving that with a slide guitar more than I like the compressor. I don't know what it is. I've just never kicked it on and been like, yeah, that's what I'm after.
Yep.
So yeah, answer is yes and no, I don't like it.
I think you're right. I think it's a combination of having an amplifier that takes, like if you've got a really clean, loud amp, I think a compressor would take out the spikes and
Yeah.
give you that sort of clean sustain. Because obviously when the guitar's super clean, you're not going to get that long held sustain as well as you would do on a overdriven amp or with a pedal or whatever. So I think that's kind of where he was going, was getting super clean and super sustain. But yeah, I like a bit of grit on it, and with grit
me
comes
too.
compression and
Yes, totally.
you can use
and
touch sensitivity then, and use your volume pot for dynamics and
I think that's what it is.
Dynamics.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, like I use the volume knob constantly. And I tend to actually not even use pedals much at all. Like I've got them on there for shitty backline amps, but 90% of the time I just use one boost for solos and that's it. And but I do wind the amps up loud, which sound guys don't love, but it's so much how I've learned to play, by being loud and by controlling it, and then using touch dynamics and stuff, and allowing the sustain to come from the overdriven amp. So that feels right to me. So, yeah, I just got to lump it, unfortunately.
That's right. And it's got to feel right, man. If you guys are going to be on stage, pouring your hearts out, you might as well, it's got to start on stage. It can't, you don't play for the sound guy, you play for yourself, and the emotions will translate, I think. Obviously, if it's a tiny room, you have to be considerate, but maybe that's when you bring the champ, or that's when you bring the small amp, if you can. And speaking of amps, I had a little, I did have a little look on the YouTube, and I think we briefly talked about it when we saw you guys in Tassie. You're running, is it like an old, like a projector amplifier or some sort of like bizarre?
Yeah. I've actually.
Tell me about that, man.
Yeah, so that's, I've got a couple of them actually. So do you know Jed Hughes?
No.
Guitar player. He's an Aussie guy from Adelaide, I think. He lives in Nashville. Cool. He's phenomenal. Plays with Vince Gill at the moment. Randomly, I saw him play with Emmy Lou 10 years ago, and I was like, who is this guy? It turned out he was an Australian. I felt like a little pang of pride for him. And then many years later, I was on Reverb looking for a projector amp, and I went and bought it, and I realised it was Jed Hughes. And so he kind of struck up a conversation. He's heard the amp being played on Sweet Talk stuff too, and he's a fan, which is really exciting. But so I bought this. This is it's an old Bell and Howell projector. So they used to have like a reel-to-reel film inside a portable projector that had an amplifier in it and a speaker. So it was like a home stereo system, home film entertainment system you could bring around to people's houses and watch movies on.
Sure.
Which is so bizarre. But it's got like a little 8-inch speaker in it, but you can also plug it into a cab. But it's like they're built by a guy in the States and in LA called Austin Hooks. And he builds them for like Blake Mills and all that sort of stuff. And I was looking for it because I liked Blake's tone, But I've since sort of struck up a bit of a friendship with him too. And so he's built me another couple of bits and pieces. So I've got a couple of them. The Christmas song we just put out has another one on it, actually. But yeah, they're basically, as far as I can explain it, kind of like a 5E3 Tweed Deluxe that doesn't flub out in the bottom end when you're pushing it. So it's kind of like this strange, it's got an unusual tube complement in there. There's a whole bunch of old tubes, really small transformers, about 15 watts. Gets really saggy and compressy, but it doesn't flub for some reason. It doesn't get all weird in the bottom end and modulating and stuff. It's just like really clean. Almost, I don't want to say it's Marshall-esque because like I'm just not a Marshall guy, but it's got that mid-range clarity and push without it being, but still feels like a Fender to play, So they're super cool amps. So they're a little quiet for live application, but I often run it as a B amp. So I'll have it on an AB switcher and run that as the B amp. Yeah, I love the way it responds. It's a beautiful thing, wonderful for slide. Just super compressed.
It's a great discovery then by the sound of it.
Yeah. I like the weird stuff, I like the slightly strange, unusual stuff. I like stuff that does one thing really well.
Yeah.
I've
it's
never
probably
been
a simple circuit or simple arrangement of knobs and just like that's what
It's
it does.
tone and volume.
Doesn't have to do everything.
Tone and volume. My favorite amps are tone and volume. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's a fun one for sure.
That's great, man.
Yeah. I'd love to show them to you, but obviously the audience can't see them.
It's all right. And you guys are in Melbourne, yeah? You guys are a Victorian band?
Both Coburg, the two of us.
Yeah. Coburg.
Yeah, represent.
North of the river.
Yeah.
Sweet. You mentioned you went to high school together. Do you guys play in bands as well as kids, or did you kind of just hang out and nerd out on guitars? Or?
The first band I was ever in was with Dave. Not actually, and it was not Dave's first band, but it was mine.
Right.
And it must have been year 12, year 11, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's coming off the back of a great run of new metal at the time. So it may or may not have been skewed that way. But, you learn a lot doing that. And that's sort of where, I guess the musical journey started for us. But since then, we've gone through lots of different projects, lots of different styles even. But with the eye on the prize that this was always going to be our baby, going for this kind of music, I guess, that Sweet Talk plays.
Sure. Yeah, it's timeless, feel-good sort of, it's good for the soul sort of music. What I like about it is it's honest and it doesn't narrow in an audience. Like to me, like when seeing you guys play at the St. Mary's school, like seeing a bunch of kids between, I don't know, 8 and 15, 16, just like going bonkers, getting autographs.
That's right.
And then, you go and play at a festival and you probably got like 60, 70-year-olds going, oh, you guys, you sound like my youth or whatever. So
yeah, we do get that.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, shit, yeah. We get that heaps, we talk about it a little bit really. Like, what's our target market? It's like there are multiple ones,
Yeah.
If there are people our age that love our music and people younger who are getting turned on to it. And when we were in Tasmania, I was sitting in a fish shop in Hobart and Steely Dan was on, and I looked at the kids working behind the counter and they were 18. I thought, oh, okay, it must be the radio. And then Steely Dan comes on again and then again and then again. I'm like, I had to ask them, like, is there a Steely Dan fan in the house? And they were all mad, rabid Steely Dan fans. And they're 18 years old. And I'm like, all right, cool. That's exciting. Okay. Kids are still getting turned onto it. So, but like if you came to either Soren or any of our parties and you had access to our vinyl collection or the Spotify playlist, we're playing the music we listen to. Like if you come to we would put on Little Feat, the band, Faces, Stones, Beatles, like that's regularly what we listen to. So we're just doing that because we love it, Yep. That's where it starts from. Luckily people seem to like it.
And I think also we kind of like the challenge of trying to synthesize all those different kind of influences, because they're not all one sort of thing. But I think what we're trying to do is to go from infusing the Beatles with the Allman Brothers, with Faces, and I feel like we're doing all right. We've got a ways to go, but you can definitely hear those influences on our sleeve, hopefully in a not obvious way, I guess, but yeah.
Definitely hear the influences without being, I don't know, you're definitely not imitating, but you can definitely hear the honesty and it's almost like you're sort of acknowledging and you're admiring and you're sort of paying homage or whatever to these groups that have led the way in that style. You're kind of just going, hey, we're a bunch of dudes from Melbourne, we're having fun with this music. it's fun music, like, and that
yeah.
comes through, I think, in the performance from everyone on stage. Everyone's having fun, but it's not just like this fake fun either. It's like it's real. It's real shit. It's good.
Yeah.
Honest.
I feel like,
Yeah.
we're no good at faking it. I think you can tell if we're having a bad show. It's hard for us to. So, we're having really good shows lately, and we love it. Honestly, we really do, and we're frothing up there to be playing this stuff. To be honest, like I'm sure we've both done this, but I know personally I've played in so many groups. I've actually looked back on and thinking, why the fuck did I play? I didn't even like that music. I didn't even like that band. I didn't even like those people or whatever, But you just get like stuck in this thing where you're playing live and it's exciting, and
But I bet also, Dave, in the back of your mind, you would have always had this band in mind going, okay, when this is done, then I'll do the thing.
Yeah, that's right. This is just a stepping stone to what I really want to do. And, like you were saying about the older fans and stuff like that. And like, we're not super young fellas anymore. And like the beauty of this scene and I don't know if you loosely want to call it, we call it Southern Boogie, right? But like any kind of loosely Southern country blues kind of roots kind of based music, it's a timeless art form where how old you are when you do it doesn't matter. So it's a really wonderful place to be. Like the pressure of trying to make something successful in a short period of time because you're in your 20s, or trying to figure out what the zeitgeist is, that sort of shit. It doesn't exist in this because, like you said, like we're paying homage to the greats, but we're forging a new path within it as well. And so there's a clear delineage, like a clear line, a clear lineage going from the past to what we're trying to do with it, and it, it's not on the radio yet necessarily, but there are bands out there that are successful doing it. But it's not the need for us. It's not the reason we're doing it, but it's nice that it seems to be resonating with people.
Yeah.
We would 100% be doing this anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, our entire goal, like a couple of years ago, was just to be able to play the Gem, our local pub where we lived at the time, on the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, let's just get good and play the Gem each week, and that'll be like good, But we never really thought we'd be playing interstate every second week, like at all. Certainly not year one.
So tell us, because you guys are pretty fresh, like as the band, not personally speaking, but as Sweet Talk, the band. You've released an EP and you're, sort of touring nationally, doing some pretty decent festivals. How has that leap been? Like, have you guys sort of held on to that pretty well? Like, or has it sort of been a bit of a shock, or has it kind of been?
I'd say it's sort of been. We've been working towards this, I guess, all our lives. So we've never not been ready for something like this happening. But there was a lot going on at that time in the world. And with COVID and whatnot. So it was an element of coming back full force to fully playing live and so consistently playing live after a period of not really, interacting for a while. That was a challenge sort of in itself, but the fact that it was what it was, as far as playing live music, the music we loved, the music we'd written literally through COVID, it was quite special. So... I think we handled it well. A lot of us had some other stuff going on. I became a new father right at the start of getting out of COVID when we first started playing shows and stuff. So for me, that was a very joyous but, challenging time. And Dave's been through it himself. He's a father as well. But, so all in all, I'd say it had its challenges, but we've embraced it, and I think we're just riding with it.
Yeah, I mean, Soz was at the Tamworth Country Music Festival for a week, about a month after Dusty was born, wasn't it, or something? So, that's hard, making those sacrifices, I think one of the big challenges has been learning how to perform consistent runs of dates so close together. That's a whole other skill set I wasn't aware that I needed to prepare for. Yep. And that I know Tane, our singer, he's got the biggest responsibility with that because he's got to protect his voice. But I even found me hanging out at the bar after a show, talking over the crowd, then the next day being really hoarse, and I'm like, oh, hang on. And then the third day I couldn't sing the top notes of my harmonies. I'm like, okay, well, I've got to start figuring out strategies for that, and just like get gear maintenance, that sort of stuff. Because like when you're just playing your local city, you've got a week between shows, and you can kind of like pull your stuff out and see if everything's working or restring or whatever. But when you're doing 3 festival runs, flying to another city, playing that afternoon, playing that evening again, or doing multiple shows in a day, you don't have that opportunity. So that's a whole other thing that we've had to kind of like learn how to do, which is quite interesting. Yeah.
Have you had any challenges along that way? Have you had hiccups and things that just
always don't work? Yeah, all the time. We've learned to start taking an auxiliary guitar with us. So we've got a backup. We've got a backup with us at all times. Definitely,
like one each.
No, one for the both of us actually. Because
one between us. Yeah.
Yeah. So because I've got 2 anyway.
Right.
I've got the regular tuning and then the open tuning. So if all else fails and 2 guitars go down, we could still make it work if we had a bit of tuning time in between.
Okay.
The biggest challenge for sure as guitar players is backline amps. Like that's the stuff that tears your guts out, because when you work so hard on your tone and like we haven't even got to like gear or anything, but like, or we did a bit, but like when you've spent so much time investing in amplifiers and you're trying to figure out what is you need and you land on something you're happy with, right? And then you like fly somewhere else and you're playing a Marshall JCM 800. Thank you, Bishno Food and Wine.
Yeah.
It's like I don't even know what does this do, So that's a big challenge. We're pretty hard on our tech writer. Like we've got specific requirements there, but it's very difficult for that to happen a lot of the time. So you never know what you're going to get. It's like potluck. So that's a that's a challenge we talk about.
That's probably the biggest challenge right now, that we go round in circles talking about that on a weekly basis, how we can sort of get around that and mitigate those sort of factors. And no hard answers just yet.
Yeah.
It's funny, a few guys on the podcast have gone down the Helix road. They're talking about just Helixes and in-ears and stuff like that. Mainly because they're like major touring acts, and that's just like they've got their sound guys, they've got their tones, and each song is like dialed in, bang, here's the next song. Because if they're singing, they don't have to think about it, it's just all there. But for me, that would just do my head in,
Oh, yeah.
Me too.
It's just, it's like uncharted waters for me.
I can't run. I've tried in-ears before. I hate them. I can't run them yet. Maybe I'll learn to love them, but the sonic feed, the feedback you get from the wattage of the amplifier resonating your chest cavity is pretty damn important, I think. It's like, but we've done everything. We've done 5 watt amps, 10 watt amps, like really quiet to try, and then got the band to play quieter, to like toying with like 40 watt tweed bassmans and AC30s and all this sort of stuff. And I think where we're landing at the moment, this is what we're trying to do, is the dual amp setup. So we've got like a louder, more strident clean amp that will never get drowned out by the drums.
Yep.
And then a smaller kind of scuzzed out 5, 8, 10 watt amp that we can kind of get pumped through the monitors and primarily front of house. Because like when we record, we always use small amps, always.
Yeah.
Like champs or like the projectors or I've got a little old Princeton brown face one, like that sort of thing is what we tend to run in the studio. But they're just not loud enough for live. But if you run them in tandem, we might be able to get our tone whilst also having the back line. So then I guess if we can find a way of touring with the small amps, and then running them with the back line possibly, or I don't know.
I'm thinking like a champ could be like carry on, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, little Pro Junior even. Like even those little Pro Juniors are pretty small and nimble. They actually punch above their weight, I reckon, those little things.
Definitely. Yeah. But there's, we go around in circles.
So do you guys have pedals that you sort of rely on at the moment for that kind of grit and stuff? Or is it just turn up and hope for the best?
No, I roll with a clone sort of a thing that I have just in case. I'm sure you might have similar there, Davey. But you're right. It's a potluck when you get there. That's probably the only one that I need.
Yeah, you can get a nice sound. Like I tend to not run them and just turn the amp up and just like have deal with it. But like the JCM 800 thing I was talking about before, I don't know how to use them, and often there's not quite enough time. But that was quite a dirty amp, and so it was way too dirty. I couldn't get it clean enough. But yeah, I've got a protein that I've been using lately, a brown protein, which is a dual pedal thing. One side is like a blue. Blues breaker type pedal.
Blues breaker, yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of cool. It just adds a little bit of hair, which is where I kind of tend to live anyway. And then the right side is...
Ironically.
And then the Nobel's ODR one on the right thing. That's my favorite thing at the moment for it. It tends to do everything I need one thing to do. A little bit of hair on the left. And then a nice compressed kind of lead sound on the right, and that's it. Yeah, that's it. And then, the clon I'd use more in a boost fashion if I needed to get above anything. For one thing, I'm finding with boosts lately, and I don't know if this is a tangent or not, is that like where I tend to set the amp, if I boost it, all I'm doing is getting too overdriven because of the volume knob thing. So like my volume knob's on 7 90% of the time. And then that's like slightly overdriven. And then if I go to 10, it's relatively not even close to Malcolm Young level overdriven, but like it's grittier than we would normally tend to use. And that's a solo tone, right? So any kind of volume boost from my pedals is just going to go over the top and turn into like too distorted. So that's kind of I think we're both kind of battling that at the moment, just like finding the way to get up above the band without being too overdriven while still having a decent, slightly driven rhythm tone, and I reckon, and I just don't think you get a great result with pedals. I've done it all in that world, and I still feel they sound like pedals. I
totally agree. I've realised this week, Dave, that I think the only reason I run the clon on most of the time, even if it's like, low gain or whatever, is for that, because Pete, I've only just discovered buffering in pedals. And it's because of that, I think, because that that tuner was destroying my signal path. That's why I wanted the clon on the whole time, Pete. Yeah. I'm figuring out a lot about my pedals this week, actually, and it's that I don't need any of them.
That's the thing. The deeper down the rabbit hole of pedals that I think we've both done this, and I've done this as well. The deeper down you go, the more you realize you don't need them. And like if you kind of know how to set the amplifier, if it, obviously right amp, right guitar, the shit you like, then it's just a distraction. It's like we don't.
It's a gamble, like with your signal path almost. And it's just often not worth it.
And it's more shit to go wrong. Like I was never happier than when I was plugging straight into the amp using a clip-on tuner. I was never happier. That was like it, because there was nothing at my feet, didn't have to worry about it. This was it. This was the limited palette I was allowed to use, and I had to figure out what to do with it, Yep. Because like we don't use reverb or delay or anything on anything. So it's really just overdrives that we've been trying to get like a decent backline amp sound with. But when we play at home, it's like we don't really need it.
It's a great way to go, man. If you can get the tone that you want without the distractions of flashy lights and also, like you said, things to go wrong, cables to go bung, or just like for someone to trip on. If you're playing at the jam, someone's going to probably trip over your pedal board and when they're
on the way to the loo.
Yeah. Beers all over your pedals, totally. And I mean, they cost so much money, and they're just like, it's a joke, really. Like, what's in there? You know, it costs so much money. It's like,
Do you guys remember the story about how Neil Young had that pedal that was actually a mechanical pedal and moved the knobs of his amp? That's what I want.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the jam. Absolutely. Without it being a channel switching bullshit amp. Because that doesn't work either. The channel switches, the tone suck machines. That's the other thing I've discovered over the years.
Really?
The less amount of shit in the amp, the better. So, like, that's why I love Tweed amps. That's why I love this Princeton, the brown face. My main gigging amp is a Trainwreck copy, which is basically, as far as I can tell, basically an AC30 top boost with nothing in it that doesn't absolutely need to be there. So it's a simpler circuit. Just pure sound, like much more harmonic content. No negative feedback is a big one as well. Like, you know, just amps that go into overdrive really reasonably through touch sensitivity. That's what we're all really looking for, I think. I think we're always looking for play the strings softly. It's clean, but you can break up a bit. Dig in more, you're getting some spank. Really thrash it, it's fucking overdriven. We want to do it with our fingers. We don't really want to do it with our toes, you know?
That's so true.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's,
Dave for president.
But no one seems to have been able to make the thing that we all want, right? So it's but what it comes down to, right, it is just like technique. You've got to invest the time to like I had to do this like a couple of years ago, just like you know, get off my reliance on pedals and you know, learn how to play the amplifier. You know, it's a funny old thing.
Yeah, it's a catch because you know, everywhere you look, a guitar player has a bundle of tones at his feet, and then it's like, oh yeah, I need one of those, and then they get one, and it's like, oh, I might get another one, and then read a review, and then I'm on YouTube, and then it's like, here's my credit card.
Oh man, God, the amount of YouTube videos I watched instead of playing guitar. In 2000. Dude, it was so crazy. I was certain that my limited playing ability would be better if I bought the pedal, right? Like I had a real clone. I bought a real clone off of Bill Finnegan. I called him up and I bought it. That's I went deep down the rabbit hole in like 2009, 2007 or something, 2008. I bought one from him, and I bought it for $350, and I sold it for $700 to go to Vietnam. And I thought I was like, man, I made so much money. And if I'd hung on to the thing, holy shit. Yeah.
I know, it's off the show.
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. They're overdrive circuits, you know. There are a couple of clipping diodes or an op amp or something. It's like, it's marketing, really. And that's another thing we have to remember. You know, it's hype. Pedals are hype, you know. So,
totally.
I mean, throw the pedal board away, and then 6 months later, I'll want it back probably. So,
it's good to have them and experiment with things. And I think what I've learned over the time is you just don't trust reviews, or not saying don't trust them, just don't think that you are that person. Like you have to make your own judgment, your own amp, your own guitar, your own style, your own playing skills and ability. And God, even the band that you play, if you play with a band, like it has to work for that outfit. You know,
totally.
There's no point having a touch sensitivity approach if you're playing in a really loud band because you're just not going to get hurt.
Yeah, I think the beauty of what we're doing is that thankfully we don't. There's no call for us to have a multi-effects unit. There's no call for us to have long delays or too much stuff going on. You know, like it really is just about the way that we've used overdrives over the last couple of years is really just to try and get a dodgy sounding or cold sounding or turn down too quiet sounding amp to sound like it's turned up louder or fatter or cooking itself. It's really just about trying to trick us into thinking we're playing the amps at the right volume or whatever. Yep. That's good. It's simpler. You know, if we add too much effects to us, what we're doing, there's so many other people in our band and so much going on that there's just not the space for it, you know?
Yeah. All that sort of fine points would just get lost.
Yeah.
Because, you've got so many layers. Every frequency range is sort of getting covered. And as soon as you start
it's actually a big part of what we're doing right now is trying to carve more space out in that frequency spectrum right now. So, like I guess pedals, they're not going to help that for us.
So tell me about that. Let's talk a little bit about. Oh, sorry, man. You go, Dave.
No, that's all right. No, I was just going to back up. Sorry, and just say we did a recording the other day, and like we were saying, look, when we record in the same room all the time. We've done it a few different ways. The only way that works for us is everyone being in the same room with the amps in the room. So the amps will be just either side of the drum kit facing us. We'll be facing Nick. Tani's in the same room. He's got his vocal mic running through a small PA at his feet so he can hear himself, and we can hear a bit of ambient from that. And then the bass we kind of isolate a little bit, but we can still kind of hear it. And that works for us. It means that we can't make too many mistakes because it's in the room.
Yeah.
But when we do that, we've done it before in multiple different scenarios. But whenever we use the small amp thing, whenever we use Champs or small Princetons, nothing louder than 10 watts, basically, it's like when you listen to playback, it's like that's it. That's the sound. That's the sound we've been loving from all the bands we've listened to forever. It had to be what they were doing. So because it's not a huge sound, right? It's like gnarly and scuzzy and cool, but it's got its frequency response kind of like in a pocket. And because of that, it sounds louder. Like you can have it sitting there and it pokes through because it doesn't have all this woolliness down the bottom. It doesn't have all this extended top end that has no real harmonic content. It's just there and it pokes perfectly. Gives everyone more space,
Yeah, absolutely. And do you guys write guitar parts with that in mind? Like, are you guys thinking, okay, I'm going to go low, you go high, let's put a capo on, or I don't know. Is that kind of part of your songwriting approach?
Definitely, I'd say. Yeah, we do spend a lot of time on that, actually. Well, not as much as we should, Dave. But yeah. No, cool. we do often get together outside of the band, and we'll put together those guitar parts and think about what works best together. But yeah, I think it comes down to what Dave maybe started this convo out with, which is that weaving thing. And if we've got that in check and we've got that well oiled, then it sort of all just happens naturally, if you will.
Yeah. But yeah, we definitely put some thought into registers and trying to, play around one another, or if we are playing in the same register, which is unusual for us, really, there's usually like a separation of octaves or something, then one part might be more rhythmic compared to the other part or whatever. It's all pretty organic. I mean, like if you write a cool twangy country lick in like the lower register of the guitar, you'd be crazy to put another notey part down there on a guitar, right? So the next bit should be higher up the register or simpler or something to kind of carve those spaces out. It's definitely something. I think it comes naturally to both of us though, because we are ensemble players at heart anyway. So it's like
Sometimes it'll be like we'll just be jamming and working on a bit, and it'll come to a point where I'll look at you and I'll be like, oh, you're playing up there. I'll just play down there then and figure out a part down there, and probably vice versa a lot as well. Yeah. But it often happens in the moment. If we're jamming something out, we'll just be aware of what each other is playing and adjust accordingly depending on who's playing a more flaming part.
Yeah, and I think we noticed this the other day as well, like that the whole band's starting to do that a bit more. We've been playing so much this year that like when we're jamming on an idea, like we did a Christmas song recently, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. It came out on Friday, and we got together to rehearse that on the Tuesday prior to recording it on the Friday. And we had no idea what the hell we were going to do on the Tuesday until we got in there. And like within about 20 minutes, it was already sounding sweet to track, because like we're just naturally falling into an understanding of where the band's headed sonically, but also an understanding of what everyone's doing individually, and understanding where the space is and understanding what the role might be. If two people are playing this thing that sounds great, like your job really is to find something that complements that, not to blast over top of it, So that's starting to happen a lot more naturally now, I think, which is really awesome because stuff just happens quicker, which is cool.
I think that takes time though, doesn't it? Like as an individual to learn that and to sort of like mature and go, oh, you know what? This moment isn't about me and what I'm doing. It's about the whole. It's about the unit. It's about the song. it's about maybe leaving some space for the drummer to do a little fill, or maybe for the piano player to, get the whirly sort of happening, or to spin that Leslie a bit. So it really is just time. And if you guys are playing as often as you are, like you're going to be like excelling every time you play. You're going to be learning, and you're going to be going, and it's going to be natural. It's not going to be like this processed thought. It's just going to be a natural thing, because you're just constantly listening. I think listening's the huge one, where you can just go, oh, what's going on over there? Great. I'll acknowledge that, or I'll move away, or It's a great feeling. Hey, when there's one unit, but there's like a huge ensemble making that one sound. It's a buzz.
Yeah, and I think we want
so true. Yeah,
we want everyone to shine. Like this group of players are killer players. So you want everyone to have their moment to be able to shine as well. And so I think we're pretty good at facilitating that too. It's like when you mentioned Nick, right? It's like frequently it's somebody, one of the other band members calling for him, hey, you know what you should do? You should do a sick fill here. Right, like quite often the star moment someone else is doing is thought of by somebody else in the band. Like, oh, this would be sick if there was a lick like this or something, which is really cool. So there's a lot of alley-ooping going on. I think everyone's really generous, and like we know, like at the core, the song's king. So, and everyone knows everyone's skills, and throwing the ball to them sometimes is an exciting way to allow things to happen.
Well, I know Nick's a multi-instrumentalist. He plays guitar and sings as well. Is that kind of the vibe in the band? Like, are you all guys sort of like multi-instrumentalists as well? And like, I know that I've heard interviews with like Levon Helm saying how, playing other instruments makes him a better drummer. Like playing mandolin, or, he's a better drummer because of it, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, no. I'm straight up guitar. I mean, I've got a ukulele over there and whatnot, but they're various versions of a guitar, more or less. Sure. Yeah, for me.
Same, pretty much. I mean, I can program a drum kit on a keyboard and like play some dumb chords on a piano for stuff. But yeah, just guitar. Like, I think I just love the guitar, and I don't think I'm anywhere near good enough at guitar to learn another instrument yet. So I just want to keep working on that. Like. Oh, man, I sat down and had a pretty terrible day on it yesterday. I was like, oh, nothing was coming out right. I'm like, oh, God. It's just like, I suck. And so then today it was like, get up and give it another crack. No, I mean, I think everyone plays a little bit of everything, but nothing in the realm of the band styles, except maybe Nick. Tane plays a lot of guitar. He's an amazing guitar player, plays keys well. And Craig's a multi-instrumentalist probably.
Yeah. As much as we're guitarists, when we're writing and stuff, I'm obsessed with the rhythm though, the drums and what the drums are going to be doing and stuff, which must be a nightmare for Nick, but... When we're writing, guitar is a huge focus, obviously, but the drums for me, I wish I was a drummer or could play drums to some competent level.
One skill that we're all singers, so and that's I'd say that's probably our second, like my second instrument is probably Sod's second instrument. Really, it's like So, like when we're writing songs, Soz and I, whoever is writing the melody at the time is often singing it. So we're thinking about it from a singer's perspective as well. And and the phrasing of the vocals and stuff like that. So, but I think also coming from like a production background, engineering background, you listen differently. I'm not sure that either of us listen like a strict guitar player might to stuff. I think that having a bit of production in our back pockets and understanding the roles of instrumentation deeply through that, it's like we do understand, we do listen and understand what each instrument could be doing and where you could take them without necessarily playing them.
And maybe we could touch on that before we go, because I know it's probably getting late and us dads are getting tired. Let's talk quickly about production and studios or just like ideas about spending your time in the studio. Like, do you guys go in there with fully formed ideas, and do you guys like think about what everything's going to sound like before you get into the studio space, like mic choice, preamp choice? I know that you're all fond of using tape and, one room, no headphones sort of vibe. Does that play a big part of probably even the songwriting, or just the parts that you play? Are you thinking about the tones and the approach to
I reckon
actual sonic?
Yeah. Like, to this point, I think we've been working towards a foundation sound almost. But it's something we've spoken about often recently, isn't it, Dave? That per song, we want to really start getting a little more intricate on the production ideas, the guitar tones, the drum tones, stuff like that, I guess. But still sounding cohesive, but just getting a little more intricate with some of the ideas, I think, production-wise. And whether that happens on this album or maybe the second album, I'm not sure. But it's something we're definitely conscious of and want to, at some stage, incorporate, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. I think we do definitely have an idea. We talk about sounds, and I mean, a lot of it comes down to the process too. Like, there's a sound we get because of our process less than it is because of the gear even, and then there's a sound because of the gear level to it as well. Sure. But like, we always, like, in terms of arrangements, parts, all that's well thought out before we go into the studio. We don't ever spend much time in the studio. Like the first EP that we did, I think we were in there for 3 days for the 6 tracks. And we don't really, we just do some vocal overdubs. All the harmonies are already, written. We rehearse a lot. So we rehearse every single Tuesday night without fail. And then we'll quite frequently throw a second rehearsal in if we're playing that week or if we haven't played in a while. So we're rehearsing all the time. We're writing. If we're not rehearsing, we're writing. Like, Soren and I will get together on other nights to write. So yeah, there's a lot of thought that's gone into it. And so, you can do it a lot of different ways. You can go in and use the studio as a tool. For this sort of music, it's not really about that. This sort of music, the studio is like a camera, and it's just taking a photograph at the moment of what we've been setting up, like Soren was saying. Like, so it comes down, we use old Ludwigs or old Rogers kits. Nick's got his vintage cymbals and old Supraphonic. So, it's a start. James has got an old P bass. So we've got tellies and strats, nothing outlandish, nothing crazy. Some old amps, some small amps. We use Wurlitzers and proper electric keyboards, proper pianos. So like, the instruments are legit. The studios are legit. If we're not engineering it, then we choose somebody who understands ribbon mics and null patterns on mics, so we can get that, have everyone in the same room and use the null rejection zone to get rid of that sound that you don't want in there. And then the mix process is super simple. Like, if you looked at our mix files, it'd be like, there's nothing on here because everything's compressed and EQ'd straight to tape and then bounced to tools. So it's really just a rebalancing and maybe a little bit of compression and stuff, but not bugger all really. So so there's that. And so just by nature of doing it that way, that is the production aesthetic so far. But, we talked about wanting to maybe do some overdubs and get a bit cheeky with some of the sounds and, maybe plug a guitar straight into a Neve 1073 and wind it all the way up, that kind of cool sound.
Yep.
Mic drop, literal mic drop. That's the sound Soren's
I'd be so down for that.
Yeah, I know. That's the sound he's wanted to hear forever. Like, we got to do it. So yeah, just that shit. Like, but all the stuff we love was done the way we just described. Like, look at all the photos of the Beatles in 1964, standing around a microphone, and there's a single mono speaker in there, and they're harmonizing to the track being played through the speaker. Elvis in a room with a band, no cans in sight, singing into a microphone, listening to the band. Frank Sinatra doing the same thing. Like, headphones can be cool too. We've just never been able to play as good with them on. So
Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it or don't alter it. Like if it feels good and it sounds good and you're getting results that you want, and especially if you're a live band, I think a lot of God, it's one thing that peeves me as an engineer and a studio guy as well. You see these young bands going to studios and the engineer just goes, okay, we're going to do drums today, and then like you're this young band who just don't really know what to do, and they just try and layer everything up and isolate everything, and then like look at everything through microscopes, and it's just it sort of does my head in. I was like,
it's crazy.
Poor kids or poor, it's a crazy concept.
It's stupid because then you make a band that's never heard a click track play to a click track, and then maybe they've got some swing or some natural interplay, and the first thing you'll do is like time correct the drums. And then all of a sudden the band's playing to a drummer that doesn't sound like their drummer. And I mean, I've made those mistakes myself in producing records, but for us, we don't really need that. So for us, it's like
you're totally horses for courses. I'm not saying it's the wrong way to go, but to me, it's like it shouldn't be your first experience in the studio. You should be not looking at things on the grid for the first time.
Yeah.
Was that your guys' first experience? Because it was mine, literally.
Yeah, it was mine for sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of taught to do it that way.
Yeah. We went to the same production school, engineering school, actually, and that permeated the whole bloody curriculum, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it did. It wasn't like, okay, how do you produce a band? Oh, you go see them play live, and then like this is what I would do, right? Go see them play live, get to know them, go see them play live 5 more times, then go to their rehearsals, take notes, and then get them in the studio and try and track them as raw as you can. It was kind of like, how do you make a record? Oh, you go in without a song, you set up a click track, and then you get a drummer to play a beat, and then, and like you build it like that. And that's a legitimate way of making music, for sure. But it's not how you should treat bands. And that's why I can't stand modern rock music, or a lot of modern country music too, but I mean, no offense to the listeners out there, but like as a Kurt Cobain fan, I've never connected with the Foo Fighters because I hear the increasing reliance on digital technology as you go through the careers of those bands. Like you hear the raw Bleach era tape, like shitty tape stuff, tape recordings, and then all of a sudden it gets cleaner and more precise and more perfect and more epic and grandiose, but it loses everything that I connected with that music over, with punk rock over. So, that energy, the rawness is like, that's what we're desperate to try and capture in the studio, the swing, the groove, the pop, the skank, we call it the bung,
Yeah.
Like we leave mistakes in all the time on purpose, because like that's how
that's
it
what
happens.
Makes it human. And it's the human element.
Yeah.
I remember parts of, because I was a big Steve Ray Vaughan fan as well, Soren. I went deep into that sort of realm of, and there's a few tracks on that first record, that Texas Flood record, and there's a few moments in there where I know where the Chris Layton misses a snare beat. I was listening for it. And there it is, bang. I was like, oh, cool. Missed the snare.
Doesn't it make
and you
it?
Hear like, it's great. It doesn't detract from the song whatsoever. And that's what you grow to like in these artists, because it's real and they haven't edited the life out of it. It's just like dudes playing music, or dudettes, just people.
Dave and I
music.
speak about this all the time, actually, about there's a thirst for authenticity now, and sort of as a backlash to what we've been force-fed for how many years, how many decades now.
Oh, yeah.
And particularly maybe just now it feels like there's such a need for this kind of thing, or people are interested in it. I think that's even, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, reflected in some of the radio listenership percentages where they're going.
Yeah, that's right. The fact that people are turning off of Triple J in large numbers. I forget the stats, but they were horrifying. Like they went from something like 26% of the youth market share to 16%, and now they're hovering around the 10% mark. And the national youth of Australia turning on to like Gold FM and those kinds of stations where it's, predominantly 70s and 80s music. And I think they've had a gut.
I think it's pop culture in general, isn't it? Like everything's photoshopped. Yeah. Like everything goes through a process. Everything goes through a computer before you see it.
Yeah.
Everything's been modified to you go to the supermarket, got to look at the apples.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
everything's been edited.
Yeah. That's right. So I guess what we try to do is we don't want to sanitize it. You know, we don't want to sanitize the bung. And the real difficulty, the challenge is to play it as an ensemble with the right amount of vibe and feeling. And often we know when we've hit the take. The difficulty is if you didn't have a great run, if in your head you didn't have a great run. We've all been dealing with this a lot. It's like if I feel like I fucked something up, but the take was great, it's about swallowing that. It's about following that and going, no, that was the take. I get it.
Yes.
I just didn't feel it was the take, but I hear it now, you know.
Yeah,
That's the hard part. It's like if you hit a bung note, you know, and there's no way of scrubbing it and it's going to be in there, living with it. You know? And that's a tough one. That's a tough one for kids who grew up on the click track culture, for sure.
But those records where we heard those mistakes, those players have had to deal with that as well, you know.
Yeah.
And it's made the experience for us almost.
And it's often the best part of the record, you know.
Yes.
Often your favorite part of the record is the time the singer's voice cracks and they would have hated it, or the time, you know, there's a weird note in the solo. Like, so, get out of your own way.
I agree.
Hollywood Boulevard, blame it on the big movie star. That time you look just like the Marlboro Man. Peter Jackson yelling, got the match in his hand. Manson cut his edges with no thought for the rest. But Tina Turner told us all the whiffles are bad. When I got no money, I buy JPS. Downhill holidays, I'm not the one to object. You know the stuff I like, you know what I mean. When I started out, I wanted to just look like they did. Light it up. Light it up.
It's a tough pill to swallow, and especially when you're in the zone of that recording environment, your ears are so open, like you're so sensitive to every little thing. You know, it's almost like the worst time to think about it, or the worst time to be a critic. You almost need to go, okay, cool, that felt great. Let's just put that down on the tape chart. We'll go, great feel was take 3, and then we'll come back in a week's time and go, oh yeah, that was pretty good. Instead of going to a playback instantly and going and critiquing your work, you know.
Yeah.
You have to trust your gut.
Yeah, I think with us it's always the pocket, because the band's predicated on pocket. That's like the whole thing. So it's the 6 members creating that pocket, and more often than not, we'll know in the first 2 bars of a playback. And if we do, we'll do. But what we won't do is run from the live room into the control room after a take each time. We'll do 5 takes probably on the floor, and then go back in and have a listen. Generally,
With a feeling and inclination of which of those takes is the one, perhaps. Yeah.
Then it might be a quick break. Then it might be 3 more takes. You know, if we're having a particularly rough run. But it's always there's the pocket, that groove, the interplay between the instruments. It's either there or it's not, you know. So we're pretty quick at identifying that stuff.
Nice. Well, are you guys working on material at the moment? Have you got any projects on the lurk?
Always.
So you are recording a new record?
Time will tell. This next year, we're sort of at those crossroads right now, sort of figuring out, as far as recorded music, how we want to deliver it or present it, I think.
Yeah, we're
As in format, like if you print vinyl.
Not so much format,
sort of
like
thing?
length, I'd say, is more the thing. Like whether we shoot for a proper studio EP or a proper studio album, or We're sort of just deliberating at the moment, I guess.
There will be new music at some
Yes.
stage this year. It's just we're actually going on a hiatus from, I guess, April to late July, August kind of vibe, because I'm having another bub and someone else in the band is having a bub too. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say.
It's not the best descriptive word, hiatus. We're still going to be working.
Yeah, no, hiatus is bad, isn't it? It's we're not doing fly gigs for a while.
Yeah.
But we're going to use that period where we can't travel to basically write, and it's going to be winter and stuff. We've pretty much got an album in the can writing wise. It's just a matter of whether we record it all or we record bits of it or whatever. That's going to be driven by demand, really, about what we need to do this year. So.
Sure.
You've only got one debut album, one debut album, so it's like, we don't want to just,
ATM machine.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a tough one, right? Like if you're in Australia and you look seeking an Australian label, we could release something independently, but we don't have enough head steam to justify that just yet, probably. So it's about if we can get a bit more demand happening for that or whatever. Like there's a documentary that we made on ourselves on YouTube on our channel, and at the end of it is just a throwaway that I said, and I said, no one is buying your $30,000 album, kids. Nobody, right? Because like that's how much like realistically an album's going to cost, and it's just who's buying them. We're about to print our first CDs actually, but it's like we need to figure out whether or not we can make an album for us for sure, but it'd be nice to make it for other people.
Yeah, it's a tough one, especially when you're financing yourself. I know that all those possible campaigns are a realistic option these days. I'm not sure how I personally feel about it myself, but I know that a lot of artists do that and they have a great fan base who support that movement.
Yeah, we're working with a guy now. We got a manager, which is exciting.
Great.
We're thinking about it. We didn't expect year one to go like this. And I don't think we ever gave much thought to year two. So it's like, oh shit, we got a whole other year now. So it's like, we're trying to figure out what to do with it, really. We've got some really cool shows. We're playing Tamworth again, which is really exciting. That was really the beginning of everything for us. We played there in April this year. And that was really our first serious
Tamworth
show.
Hotel?
Yeah. And then that from there is where we got absolutely every offer after that, like, for every other festival, basically stems back to that moment. And we're playing Port Fairy in March, Port Fairy Folk Fest, which is super cool. A couple other bits and pieces. So, after that, it's about, okay, let's figure out what we're going to do with the rest of the year.
I know I'd buy an LP if you guys made one.
Hey.
We will.
And I do like the video content too. I think that's really important in a band in this day and age, is to have great content online, good looking stuff, good sounding stuff, and be present. It's such a big factor of having a successful thing, be it music or whatever. You have a good online presence. Do you guys dedicate people for that, or?
Well, yeah, we've worked with a few really great people with the video, but we're harking back to that authentic kind of vibe we're trying to create. I think that's important as well, like bringing people visually into that. You can hear it, but we want them to know how it happens or how much fun we're having when we do it, or I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, so far every video we've released, I think, is the actual take that you're hearing. That's it being done. So it's cool. We're not miming to playback. We're not. There's no editing between. Like that's exactly the take that you're hearing is the take that's released on Spotify and all that sort of stuff. So or YouTube or whatever. So yeah, and that just like that first EP that we did was supposed to just be some proof of concepts for like getting some shows and maybe putting together some kind of like
stuff.
Yeah, exactly that stuff. Like with I think we even applied for a festival and they were like, where's your online portfolio and a YouTube video? I'm like, okay, fuck, we better make one. So we did it, and it just turned out better than we expected, and we certainly got more out of it than, from a measured success kind of perspective, more shows out of it and stuff like that, and people like it, So we were never intended to throw it up on Spotify, and then people asked us to, so we did. So yeah, I mean, it was never anything we put even that much like time into, but a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, and then just like flash recordings and stuff. So
Yeah.
we'll see where we land.
Yeah, it's about capturing
We got the song.
that vibe in the moment. Well, I reckon, fellas, we've had a good chat. Is there anything you want to spruik?
I guess one thing is that we're not currently sponsored by any great guitar brands. If anyone out there is listening. Other than that, Dave?
Look, I mean, if Aaron Williams are listening, feel free to get in touch.
Here we are, just using your podcast. For Sorry, Pete.
Yeah, totally. Boycott it all you
No,
like.
only kidding.
I could do with some new boots too.
No, I mean, if they don't know who we are, go check us out. You know, if you like it, say good day. You know, sweet_talk_music is our Instagram handle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
We just released a Christmas song. Come on, get on it. I don't know if this comes out before Christmas, but even for next Christmas, keep it in mind.
And the Christmas after that. And one thing you don't do is go to sweettalk.com.au. I did that. And I was like, luxury candy boutique. I was like, no, that's not you guys.
Oh, is it?
And then I went sweettalk.com, and it's like an adults only 18 plus.
Yeah. That's the one I did at work. That's the one yeah.
To be sure, sweettalkmusic.com.au, people.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Can I just say
thanks
before
again
we
for
leave,
joining
Pete?
us. Yeah,
Sorry. But just how much we both, Dave and I, enjoyed your performance at Bicheno, man. You're an incredible player, and it's a real pleasure to be on your podcast, my man.
Totally.
Thank you kindly. Humbled. Maybe it is a good time to finish.
Let us know when you're in Melbourne.
Yeah, well, I will. I'll get in touch.
Yeah.
We'll hang out and have a mountain goat.
Hell yeah.
Sweet. Well, thanks again, boys. Have a great Christmas, and we'll see you and hear you hopefully soon.
Amazing, man. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Pete.
Cheers. Thanks for listening, folks, to another episode of Say It With Guitars. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast, share it around to your mates, leave a good review, and hopefully we'll see you next time.